All right, welcome back to the Business Roundtable Podcast. I'm so excited, you guys, to have Heather and Stacey back. For those of you that have been following along, Heather and Stacey have been back on the podcast quite a while back, and we were talking about health in a different aspect. And so I invited them both back on the podcast, and I'll let them introduce themselves for our topic this week. So without further ado, Heather, welcome back to the podcast.
Oh, thank you so much, David. I really do appreciate you having me here. I'm so excited about the topic. When you talked about the topic in general, I got super excited. Then I saw some of the things that we are looking at doing. I'm so excited to be here. Anyway, I am Heather Healer. I have been in a wellness for 30 years, and I am a number one best-selling author, as well as seen on Fox News and NBC, ABC, those kind of things. But most importantly, what I do is I help people love themselves, and I help people with their wellness practices so they can feel their best.
Awesome. We're so excited, Heather, and I'm sure you'll share some more things you've been up to recently. So thanks and welcome back. And
Thanks,
Stacey,
David.
Stacey was on our very first podcast when we started
Yes.
this in 2023. She was actually one of the inspired me to get this podcast going. With her, we were talking earlier about your pioneer voice and your visionary voice. So thank you, Stacey. Welcome back to the podcast.
Thank you, David. I'm excited to be back and also to be able to have a conversation with Heather. And so I am Stacey Kinoshita with Sage Synergy Solutions. I have been in the financial industry for over 10 years. And prior to that, I was a business owner in California and just learn to understand the challenges that business owners face, wearing multiple hats. We're trying to build their business and try to have employees and keep compliant and all that other stuff that comes along with being an entrepreneur and starting a business. And so I currently work with business owners who are frustrated in those areas of business. They don't have a culture that promotes or encourages their employees to stay with them. So there's turnover. There's, they're trying to do it all and keep to their bottom line, increase their bottom line. And so I work with them on strategies in those areas. And I'm excited about the topic because I know that very well. And it's just one of the areas that I pay attention to in my own life and then in the life of other entrepreneurs is health. And so I'm glad to be able to have this conversation with Heather because
Yeah,
she's
absolutely. So you both alluded to it. Yes, health focus. We're here when we're recording this. It's the end of October. We're almost on the precipice of November, and I thought, before you know it, we'll be at the end of the year. We'll get through Thanksgiving and Christmas and New Year's and all of those things. And it's difficult enough throughout the year with running a business, like you said, Stacey. And being a leader, whether you're the owner of the business, whether you're managing a team. And so I thought, how can we be more mindful about health and well-being as we go into the holiday season and be more prepared instead of kind of caught unaware. Once again, you're like, oh my goodness, I can't believe it's X next week or the week after that, right? And you're like, I wasn't really planning for that, or I just wasn't anticipating it was going to be so stressful that could lead to burnout, right? Or and so we don't want people being burned out. We don't, and there's a whole host of things too that come along, perhaps even emotionally, that you're not processing, right, and dealing with when you're going through the holidays. And so I just thought, Heather, maybe we'll start with you first and then come to you, Stacey. But just talk about how do we understand and get wrap our arms around the holiday strain about health and work.
Well, I think one of the first things to understand about the holidays is the holidays in and of themselves, while they may be wonderful, they do just bring a certain amount of stress with them. They also, which Stacey will be able to speak more to this, they also bring a financial stress, financial burden to a lot of people. Everyone wants to show up their best and do their most. But the other thing that a lot of people aren't aware of is that the holidays, for anyone who's experienced trauma at some point during the holidays, are already tremulous for them, right? So you're going to have at least one employee statistically that struggles with the holidays in general. And so as a leader, as an owner, it's your job to help facilitate a healthy environment, not just make sure that everyone's eating right or that you're eating right and providing different options. So environmental health is very, very important. Understanding the stress levels are higher. Understand that there are some people who've probably got more strain than others.
Mm-hmm.
Um, in fact, I found out just today when I was doing some research that on Christmas Eve, there's a 37% higher risk of a heart attack than any other time of the year.
Wow.
Christmas Eve,
Eve.
yes.
And what
So
do they attribute that to, Heather? What is just
there's several things. One is the added stress, higher blood pressure, um, dealing with difficult, possibly family members, not eating right, overindulging in bad foods,
Mm-hmm.
and failing to nourish your body as well, excessive alcohol consumption. But mostly they kind of attribute it to poor eating, overeating, and high stress situations is what they primarily contributed to. So the holidays bring real stress, as wonderful as they can be. I love the holidays. They're not wonderful for everybody, and I think it's
Mm-hmm.
important to keep that in mind. You have the opportunity to bring joy to other people's lives, and that in and of itself is also another aspect of wellness.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. How about you, Stacey? What do you see here, kind of understanding this holiday strain? We've kind of talked about physical and kind of mental strain, but what have you seen, Stacey, kind of being
I
aware?
took
Yeah.
yes. You know what? I look at it like this. I'm gonna separate and bring it together so it makes sense. You've got pressures on the job as either as an employer or as an employee, and you have social pressures in your social life.
Yep.
And I think that if Heather said the key word is be prepared. I think David, you said that too. So I'm gonna separate them because even though they somehow tie together, I think from a social aspect, a lot of times the pressure that we have during the holiday season is based on our expectations or what we perceive as expectations from other people. So, for example, like the holiday food and the drinking and whatnot. Well, just because you go to a holiday party doesn't mean you have to eat like a pig, or
Mm-hmm.
eat foods that are not healthy for you, or drink like a pig, whatever you want to call it. The point is that you have to understand what your limitations are, what your goals are, and just be mentally prepared before you go. Not just go to these parties, and like set some limits and boundaries, expectations for yourself. I'm gonna have 3 drinks. I'm gonna watch my consumption. Like be mentally aware of when you go, um, maybe past behavior and what your goals are for current behavior.
Mm-hmm.
That's one thing. The other thing is the other social pressure. I think Heather alluded to this, the financial. When you think you have to give a gift to every Tom, Dick, and Harry, plus grandma and great grandma and the dog and the cat, then you start taking on those financial pressures. Like I need to. I remember I love giving it personal because I would live with my parents when we were younger. They used to buy us like tons and tons of toys. Um, Under the tree, and it was exciting as a child. But then I saw them after Christmas be very stressed out because of the debt.
Mm-hmm.
And so when I had my children, I went into that. So my daughter, my first child, I remember saying, "We got to go out and buy all these gifts," and my and I had the same mindset. Like, so when she wakes up, she'll see all these gifts under the tree. And my husband at the time said, who is from a different culture, said, she's only 2 years old. She doesn't know whether, all these gifts, all we need to do is spend a certain amount, and then she's going to get gifts from her grandparents and so and so. And then it made sense. And I said, duh, and so that pressure to, to not have to go out and buy all these gifts. The other thing too, is like, when families get together, uh, I remember one time, like we had a family get together and we were talking about gifts, and I'm thinking, if I had to buy gifts for every single family member, I would. That's also a financial strain. So we came up with an idea of picking names in a hat and making it a fun event. So you can look at some of your your culture, your your holiday traditions.
Mhm.
I mean,
Mhm.
some people are just so stuck
Absolutely.
on holiday traditions that they don't know any better, or they don't want to make any changes. But just making those slight adjustments can also alleviate some of the stress, financial, mental, social pressure that you have in your personal life.
Mhm.
So it doesn't make sense. I don't know, Heather, you want to
Yeah,
chime in on
yeah.
that?
Well,
To the
I wanted to pick up on that because you both talked a couple of things, and I like where you're going, Stacey, because we want in one of the areas we talked about is getting a little deeper dive into some personal strategies for well-being. But I think again, I think Heather, you brought this up. Like, look, you may have handled this well, but your other team members may not have handled this well. So how do you looking at this and being aware of, like you said, um, you might be not getting enough rest because you're trying to get all the holiday stuff squeezed in. There's lots of other events, right? So
Mhm.
again, if you're not being prepared, you're just disrupted routines, right? That
Mhm.
you're normally having. And I think you both alluded to this. And indulgent eating is it's kind of interesting now that you guys say this. I don't know why I ever thought about this, but it's a coping mechanism to a certain degree, right? Because you're stressed and then the food's right there. So you're kind of like, it's unhealthy, but
Mhm.
it's tied to this of the physical well-being, right, or what you're dealing with mentally. And so it's it's a coping mechanism, not a healthy one, but it's a coping mechanism to a degree. Right, that we've kind of created. And I think honestly, companies see that there's a demand for it, unhealthy demand, but there's a demand for it, so they kind of like, oh well, let's give you some more chocolate, let's give you some more, whatever this is.
So,
Right.
David, let me ask
Right.
you: is it a corporate? I beg to difference, and I tell you, what, I
Yes,
think
go ahead. No,
it's
I
not a
love it.
corporate. I think the corporate is just mimicking the expectations that we have in society.
Yeah.
And that is, holidays is about all indulging. I mean, think about it. Even so, the reason why I brought up the personal first is because we take that same culture and mindset and bring it into the workforce. So
Yes.
I'm going to separate it from employer to employee. So employees, I mean, every holiday, I mean, I don't know how many plates of cookies and chocolates and it's part of the festivities, but it's also part of the 15 pounds that people gain every holiday
Mhm.
season. It
Mhm.
contributes to that. So part of it is just, it's holiday season. Oh, there's some cookies, and you think that you are. I mean, what is more fun, a plate of chocolate chip cookies or a plate of carrot sticks for the holidays? I mean, so if somebody brought in carrots and celery and whatnot, they would probably think we
Mhm.
can eat this anytime. We want to have fun. So I guess,
Mhm.
well, how do you now adapt a healthier way of dealing with the holidays
Yeah.
and bring it into the workforce? That would be the question. And I think
Yeah.
and it could start from top to bottom. You're not going to police the staff and say shame on you for bringing chocolate chip cookies, but
Of
you
course
can
not.
create,
Yeah.
but you can create an environment where it promotes health and wellness, and where people are more conscientious about the types of foods they bring in during the holiday season. But that's like a culture that you have to create
Yeah.
within the company.
I agree, and I want to ask Heather this question because I think you bring a really good point, Stacey. Because for example, what if somebody's feeling the strain of like they're bringing cookies, or maybe they bring a gift or something, and so how do we handle this because they're feeling stressed, or the team morale may drop because, well, this person's doing this, should I do this too? And so how do we be intentional? And so kind of leading
Mhm.
into, how do we be balance the work and do this in a thoughtful way, to
Mhm.
where like don't discourage somebody, but also like be aware um that we're not causing people more stress, causing challenge to more people. So I guess, Heather, I'd love to have your response to what Stacey's asking here,
Yeah.
of how can we be more mindful of that.
Well, I think we both said it. First of all, you need to be aware that this is the way it is. This is a thing, and be honest with yourself about who you are and how you are. For instance, if there's a plate of cookies, I'm going to have one. It's not a matter of willpower. I'm going to have one. Now, if I have one, great. But if I have five, not so great. The other thing is, a lot of that kind of stuff that we see during the holidays, the stuff I don't have in my house for one very good reason, is because if it's there, I eat it. I don't have a lot of willpower when it comes to holiday goods.
Mhm.
By the same token, my husband lives to bake for the holidays. So I have to prepare myself, remind myself of how to properly eat, how to do that. So first of all, I recommend if you're the leader, or even if you're a team member, be that person that brings in a tray of vegetables. Because believe it or not, those things are appreciated. But it goes beyond eating, right?
Mhm.
How about instead of bringing in a plate of goodies every day? Because especially like when I worked at the bank, oh, we had tons of stuff coming in, tons of stuff coming in. I mean, we couldn't get rid of it. Um, but what about a nice plant to put on the desk? What about a nice plant to put on the desk so you're getting this nice oxygen exhale? Maybe a little. You can do a what do you call it? A diffuser. You don't even have to have oil in it, but the nice fresh moisture going into the air. These
Mhm.
are things that can help set a more tranquil mind, so you're not as prone to jump into some of those other things.
Mhm. Mhm.
Um, but when it comes to eating that stuff, a lot of people don't understand. We're talking the workforce here, but it's on a personal level as well, right?
Yeah.
You go see your friends for the holiday. Maybe you're having a ornament exchange. Everyone brings a bunch of goodies, right?
Mhm. Mhm.
A huge plate of goodies home. Well, be that person that doesn't bring sweets, right? Go ahead and
Mhm.
be that person that nobody likes. but
What-
there's so many other ways that you can be
Yeah.
involved without it actually being food. And if you're going to have that stuff, be aware that if you eat a candy bar one day at 3 p.m., guess what is going to happen to you at 8 p.m. the next day? You're going to want a candy bar. A lot of people don't understand how that works because sugar is that addictive. It is that addictive. And
Mm.
sugar free sweets are not any better because the body still thinks it's about to get sugar. It kicks in the insulin, and then things are really out of whack,
Mm.
which adds to stress, discomfort within the body, homeostasis, right? So all of that. But there's so many things that you can do. Cultivate something in the work environment, which I like to call, kind of like the Secret Santa, right? Do a secret wellness partner.
Mm.
Think about that. What could
Yeah.
you do if you guys do names and you were helping each other stay healthy, enjoy the holidays, yes, enjoy the goodies, but also have healthy practices. Think about what you could do and say, like little notes, little gifts, whatever, but you can really encourage one another. And I think the other thing too is if you think about after the holidays, what does January bring? We
New
talk
Year's
about
resolutions, all that stuff. Yeah.
right, and financial strain because you
Sure.
over,
Yep.
everything about the holidays is based on
Yeah.
overindulgence in every aspect.
Mhm.
Alcohol, sugar,
Spending.
things,
Yeah.
people, parties, and those things aren't bad. But you know what? Here's another thing is just because you're invited doesn't mean you have to go.
Mm. Mm. That's important too. So, like,
So
yeah.
if you're looking at health, and if you've been working towards health, you need some incentive to get through the holidays with that, because who wants to be at the beginning of the next year jumping on that bandwagon of now I've got to make up for the last 2 months of not taking care of myself? And
Mhm.
heaven forbid we fall into one of that 37% on Christmas Eve and have a heart attack,
Jeez.
right?
Yeah.
I mean, it's horrible. And a lot of people die from their heart attacks on Christmas Eve because when they first start having problems, they don't tell anybody.
Mm.
Why? Because they don't want to ruin the fun. They don't want to mess up the party.
Yep.
So they don't want to be taken to the hospital.
Yeah, yeah. Heather, I want to ask you a follow-up question, or Stacey, because I think you guys are both getting at how do we encourage this healthy workplace. And I really like what you just said was just because you're invited to a party or an event or experience don't feel like, especially if you feel like I'm gonna overindulge. Like if I go to this, I'm gonna probably drink too much or I'm gonna eat too much, and I know myself. And
Right.
so, how do we create ways as leaders that can encourage people to work effectively and
Mhm.
have the flexibility And I think in today's, I call it distributed workforce, where people aren't all coming into an office, how do we make sense of creating that flexibility or remote days or adjusting hours that get all the work done, or figure out what their different obligations, because I've got to go to this, I feel like I've got to go to this event, my kid's doing something, or I got to go there. So how do we address that in a healthy way so that people don't feel like just, oh, I feel like I guess I've got to do this, or I've got to make it work,
Mm-hmm.
Well, I think there's two sides to it, David. And we're talking about holidays, but I think business planning period is essential to have an effective workforce and work culture. And so, and that needs to start way before the holidays come.
Yes.
And I think you need to understand, and I think that's part of it, is just pacing the work out, or the expectations of the workers out. Anticipating that the holidays bring in additional stress, maybe even figuring out how to allow for all the other disruptions, the parties, the people getting sick, the traveling and whatnot. I know for a lot of employers, they're looking at it from a business perspective, how to make sure that the shifts are covered, that I can run my business. And so, during the holidays, a lot of people want to take off time. They want to file for their vacation time. But if everybody took off at the same time, you can't run a business. So how do you allow for those disruptions as well, to keep your business running and still keep your employees happy? I mean, that's where you have to have either a good HR, a good way of managing your staff to be able to accommodate, some of the stresses or whatnot.
Right. You don't want to feel like
absolutely.
I've got that request, Stacey, where somebody's like, oh, I didn't, if you don't plan it right, and then you're the bad guy supervisor or whatever, I'm sorry, I can't approve your time off. Well, how come? You're being selective. This person gets their time off, and it causes a whole lot of change in morale, right? If you're not planning for it, it's like it seems arbitrary, and so people get really frustrated because they feel mistreated.
So go ahead, Heather.
No, go ahead, honey.
Well, I'm saying that again is part of putting systems in place to run your business, and being able to track, having a good. Is that what you're going to say, Heather? But I think even with the company culture, I mean, for example, if you are the owner of a business, you can say, gather your staff and say, look, we understand that this is a holiday season, it's festive and whatnot, and get some buy-in. Why don't we have fun, but yet create an environment where everybody stays healthy? So what does that look like? And get some buy-in from your staff, and just say, why don't we have a Christmas party, a holiday party, not Christmas, holiday party, and we have a mixture of holiday goodies and whatnot, and make it like a holiday party, not a holiday month party.
Yeah.
And the challenge with holidays is that people get into holiday month mode and not holiday. So then you've got the sweets and the stuff coming in from Thanksgiving to after New Year's, instead of
Halloween. From Halloween.
I know. We're at Halloween tomorrow.
Sugar rush. Halloween kicks off the sugar rush. I mean, I don't know a parent out there with kids that as soon as the kids get home, they don't dig through their kids' stuff for the good candy.
You know it. That's called the parent tax, Heather.
Right?
Well, it's never a bad time to make better habits and create a more positive culture for your family, for your office. The challenge is that a lot of people won't challenge the status quo.
Right.
I heard a story one time that a mother cooks her ham. The way she cooks her ham is that she cuts the ends off of the ham and puts it in you hear that story? And I guess her daughter asked, well, Mom, why do you cut the ends off on the pan? And she said, well, your grandmother did it. And then when he asked the grandmother, why do you cut the ends off of the ham before you put it in the pan? She goes, well, the ham was too big, and so I had to cut the ends off to have it fit in the pan. But it's funny how traditions are carried on by what we see and not understanding the reason behind the tradition. So, people don't like change, but I think it takes someone to show them the vision of what it could be. Hey, look, we can still have fun, we could do all this, but it's a stressful time. Why don't we do XYZ? And it takes a little courage to be the one that sticks your neck out to
Absolutely.
introduce change, but you have to have buy-in so they understand that this is going to benefit them as well, not just on
Absolutely.
the
It needs to be
business of
inclusive, right? I think you're saying it needs to be inclusive. It needs to be supportive. It needs to be encompassing for everybody, right?
to get
There's
buy-in. Yes, to get buy-in. Now you can be a dictator and just say no, but we're talking about adults. Adults want to be
right.
treated like adults, and
Well,
so
we're coming at this from the business. Well, we're all business owners in this particular talk. Business owners, managers,
Well, I'm
whatever,
talking about with the
leaders.
employees. Employees want to
Mhm.
be treated like adults, not scolded. You brought in chocolate
Yes.
chip cookies, therefore shame on you. So you've got to get some buy-in from other adults because you need that to create that culture where people feel like they belong and that they're part of a bigger community.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Stacey, you
No,
said one thing. Go real quick, Heather. I'm gonna come to you, but I want Stacey. I really like the holiday versus the hall a month kind of concept. So, like that's a good one. Well, but makes me think of what happens is what we're trying to do is we're trying to do good things like creating a team lunch or creating gratitude and these things, but we're seeming like we're cramming it. If in some cases people are cramming it into at the end of the year when you could be intentional throughout the year in doing these things and creating a better, healthier culture. And so it's like,
Right.
hey, if I miss this one, it's not going to be the end of the world, because that's what I feel sometimes, the pressure of an end of the year company party. Oh, I guess everybody's got to go to this. This is the one thing everybody's going to do. If I don't show this up, how are they going to look at me? Or I've got a conflict because I've got to go do something with my family or whatever. So it should, I don't think it should, as that kind of pressure, I think is, we need to provide other outs, like you said, Heather, inclusiveness, right? So yeah, Heather, go ahead. That was a thought to me,
no,
Stacey. We're trying to cram it in instead of let's expand this out.
sure. Well, and I get so excited. I just can't help myself. You guys are saying such good stuff. But I think that there are so many ways that we can be inclusive and treat the employees or treat our peers or colleagues as adults. Obviously, there are so very many ways. And if you think about the things that we do throughout the year, why can't some of those same things be done throughout the holidays with a slant on, a little extra slant on, how to deal with everything, right? There's so many things that can be done. One of the things that I used to do is I would do a little form. If we were looking at this or this, which would be your option? Giving people the option to choose, giving people an option to run a little mini meeting in the morning. How are we going to be healthy today? It is my personal belief that every business should have a wellness minute in the morning. Every business. Because I think it's important for the employees to know also that their health matters. Their health matters not just for their sake, not for the business's sake, not for your sake, but their health matters just like your health matters. Ultimately, it's not just about productivity, it's about quality of life. It's about atmosphere in the environment you're in. When you consider that the winter months, there's a lot of depression, right? There's a lot of depression. There's gray skies, having a little extra light in the office. There's just so many things that can be done, in an inclusive way and encourage people to talk about it and do these things. But yeah, for the purposes of this talk, we're talking about how to do that in the holidays, because how many of you, maybe you guys are not like me, but how many people out there have really done really well? How many people get their summer body? Everyone is this diet now, it's for the summer body. Now the holidays are here. It's cold. I don't want to get out. So January, I got to get back in shape. We don't have to live like that, right? Because we have the option, like you said, to be cultivating that all year long. But I will tell you, I always, when I worked in an office space where that kind of stuff was brought in abundance, I always started out really good. by Christmas time, everything was out the door. Now I didn't gain 15 pounds because I did kind of pace myself earlier on, but eventually the sugar addiction overcame me. And so it's important that you know yourself as well.
Yes.
Right.
So
Go
Go ahead,
ahead.
Stacey.
when I take it on a corporate level or a business level, I think the employer can only be so responsible for so much.
Oh, absolutely.
You know, I do, you know, as I do group benefits, and I do see the larger companies, they do have the resources to be able to offer
Sure.
more benefits. Working on a case, and they had a program to help employees stop smoking. They have
Sure.
for mental health. They have like an app on their phone that they can actually scan their body and do all these checkups and whatnot. There's the technologies out there, the programs are out there. The larger companies understand the importance of offering employee benefits, and they make those resources available. The smaller companies, however, that wear the multiple hats, that have the mindset, a lot of them are technicians, and are learning to run a business. Those are the ones that I think the employees may suffer even more. The employees may take comfort in a more quaint environment because it's not like this huge corporation, so they may feel like they're part of a smaller tribe. But as far as resources, a lot of the small business owners are not aware of those resources, and therefore the employee is responsible on his or her own to find out those resources. By the way, that's where I can come in and assist them. But I think that again, I want to be careful that the responsible my health. I'm responsible for my own health.
Absolutely.
And if an employer offers resources, it's up to me to take advantage of those resources.
100%.
So, but you know, there again, you can have a company that offers resources, and you can still have people that will indulge throughout the year. And so,
oh, absolutely.
I think the best impact we can make on it is to deal with the individual and help them to understand the importance of health and making better choices, so that when they are exposed to because they're going to go outside of work and drink anyway and go to
They're going to
parties
do
anyway.
what they're going to do. Absolutely. Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? So,
and I think though, and you know, Stacey, I interrupted you again. Finish, and then I'll
no, you're fine. You're go ahead.
I think too. I think that's where something you said earlier is so important, and that is that ultimately I'm responsible for me. You're responsible for you. Yes, absolutely. And we can facilitate an environment that offers great advantages. You can't force someone to take those advantages, right? And I think that's where like teams, you know, having, you know, teamwork or team activities, stuff together. So I don't know of any business that doesn't have team activities throughout the year, right? So why not have team activities around health during the holidays? Or there's absolutely, I don't think that if you're the owner of a small business with 2 or 3 employees, or if you own a multi-million trillion-dollar business and you've got hundreds of employees, it's not your job to personally see to the wellness of every single person. It's not possible. It's not possible. So I completely agree with you that that's there. But I do know that when you have teams like the Secret Santa thing or the Secret Wellness Buddy, there are people who will choose not to be part of the Secret Wellness program, right? There are people who won't do it, bottom line. Right. There are people who will go to the party and drink until they're sick as a dog instead of drinking maybe club soda in between every drink and make sure they're eating before they start drinking, right? It's going to happen. And every one of us in this world have overindulged in something at some point. So it's not a judgment thing. But if it's something that matters to you, if your health and wellness matters to you, there are things that can be done within the workforce that you as a leader can facilitate and encourage for them to do so.
Absolutely.
So that goes back. Yeah. Well, both of you said this, but that goes back to intention. It goes back to planning. It goes back to, you know, creating that space. I really like that you said, Heather, this wellness moment, because it reminds me, and I know your husband does a lot of stuff in like the energy in construction and things of that nature. And so, and I've done a lot of that in the past, or I've been as a biologist, but working in there. And almost every day, I would say, generally speaking, it's practice. If you're out in the field, you have a safety moment. You're always looking at a safety to talk about something for that day. You pick a topic that's relevant to the work that you're doing, and and they may have heard this before. It's nothing really revolutionary or new, but it's an intentional reminder that this is important and this is the way we want to behave. And and I think what happens is, like you were saying earlier, Stacey, sometimes we forget that intentionality, and then everybody just gets busy. And that's what I think happens. Everybody just gets going. You got so many things that are coming at you, and then you lack that intentionality. And so then, like you said, Heather, you get stressed. I just eat the cookie or two that I'm running around to get the next thing done. And it's like, hold on, we need like the creating spaces to, like you said, Stacey, if we plan for it, then we're going to be much more successful. So on each Monday of the month, we're going to do a 10-minute wellness moment. We're going to talk about how we can be better. You know what I mean? I'm just giving you an example, but the idea is that we're showing up and we're saying these things are important. How do we make sure that these things happen? Right, Stacey and Heather?
Right. And you got to talk, it's got to be talked about. I mean, but I see more wellness programs, more wellness benefits that are being offered to the small employer. So I see that the business owner has the ability to change the culture. Now it just becomes make a decision that you're going to make.
The resources are there.
Right. The resources are there.
Stacey, they can find, you don't have to do this on your own. There are resources there. It's just you being intentional about bringing them in. And I think, again, if you're the leader, people look to the leader. So if you're working long hours, if you're not eating well, if your body's off, if you're, stressed, your staff members are going to say, well, I guess that's the way we all should be. The leader is showing me the way. So again, the leader has to prioritize their own health and well-being and take care of themselves. If they expect that, I mean, again, I'm not justifying, I'm just saying people look to that and that's how they mimic, like, oh, I guess that's how we're supposed to behave. Right.
Well, we do what we see, not what we're told.
Yeah.
And I get it from the employer side. I mean, I had a small business, and sometimes to get to a deadline, you got to work the late hours. But again, what people perceive may not always be the reality. And what I mean by that is years ago, I don't know what movie, I saw this movie, and the young girl was looking in the window, and what she thought she saw, and I don't remember the movie, was different from the reality. She looked at, and when she found out the truth, even when I saw it, that image, I thought, oh, and then when I realized, I'm like, how quickly do we come to the conclusion, negative conclusions? But just because you see a business owner working maybe in the month of December, January to make a deadline, doesn't mean that that's how they, that's their life. And I think we need to put it in perspective. But the thing is, I don't leave things up to chance, because the human mind will always think on a negative note. And I think the best way to combat that is to communicate and let people know.
Have the conversations.
So you can say, look, I'm all about health and wellness. I know that we have a deadline and we may have to put in a few hours more to be able to meet this deadline, but let's all focus on staying healthy. There has to be a conversation around it.
Well, in deadlines, there are a lot of extra deadlines during the holiday season. End of year, first of year. Ooh, yeah.
Yeah, I think that would be. I'm thinking, Heather, because there's a lot we can go in here, but I think that would be a whole another episode I would like to talk with, because Stacey, about planning, deadlines, how to, like you just said, Stacey, like, how do we do this in a healthy way? That's outside of the holiday season. That's just in general, right? How do we deal with deadlines, burnout, trying to get the things done? How is that achieved, and how do we do that in a healthy way? I would love to have another whole episode on that if you're both up for that.
Sure,
I would love to do that. Let's go for it.
I love hearing Stacey talk.
It's just amplified with the holidays, right? But this is a challenge we face, depending on what time of year it is. If you're a tax person, a CPA, well, that's the different types of seasons, right? Where you're crunched and you have to get things done. So I think that would be another great topic about health and well-being, planning for potential burnout, deliverables, and doing it in a healthy way. I mean, the holidays just adds a whole nother layer in there because we have more dates, more things that got to get done, right?
Right.
Mm-hmm.
You
Well,
know.
and in truth, David, it actually, depending on your past experience, that's more than a layer. It adds 2, 3, 4, 5 layers to it. You're
Right?
right.
Yeah.
And the reality is, all the things that you're doing all year long still need to be done.
Yep.
Right.
All
Right.
those things are still important.
Right.
Yeah, absolutely. As we're getting close to the end of the episode here, because I think we've talked about some really good things, just getting people, number one, conscientious of the strain. Like you just said, Heather, there's multiple layers. So if you're not thinking about them, you better start thinking about them now as we're going into the end of the year. Be
Right.
prepared and not caught unaware. And I think, Heather,
Exactly.
what I heard you say, Stacey, is it's a two-way street. It's the employer, but it's also you, the employee or leader. You have to take ownership of yourself and your responsibility.
Absolutely.
It's a two-way street. But I'll come to you, Heather, first, because I want to get like kind of key takeaways and things that you want to leave listeners on the podcast to hear from you as to what really, if parting words you really want to share with the listeners today.
I think the biggest thing is, I'm stealing a little bit from Stacey here, but I think the biggest thing is you need to make a plan. You need to be aware. You talked about intention, David. I think those really, really are high points of the discussion today. And the other thing is that wellness is far more than what we're eating. It's our environment. It's how we interact with others. It's past trauma that we're coping with. It's
Yes.
deadline. It's stress. It's all those things. And so, knowing that the holidays have those additional layers, would it not be prudent to take extra steps and extra precautions, be conscious about what you're walking into, like you said, David, rather than just letting it fall to crap at the end?
Yep.
Some people thrive in that environment. I'm not one of them. There are a lot of people who do not. And a lot of people feel hopeless by the end of the holiday season. And that's not something we want. And I think we can't take other people's health into our own hands, their wellness practices into our own hands. Yes, they look to the leadership, but most importantly is that we cultivate a healthy work environment. And within that healthy work environment, we allow others to work and cultivate that healthy work environment even further, right?
Yes.
That's what I'm going to leave you with.
Yes. While you say that, and I'm going to get your final thoughts, Stacey. One of the episodes we did last year, and this is, I think, a great resource because what you're talking about, Heather, is called the Peace Index Assessment, which anybody that's listening that wants to do this, it's going through and evaluating, like you said, your purpose, your place, the people in your life, your physical well-being. It's a very quick, easy, free assessment that I offer. So if anyone's interested and they want to take that, just to give you a sense of where I'm at today, and that could change tomorrow, the next week. And so we remember, I don't know, hey, Stacey, I believe you were on that podcast where we were talking about like, where do you find your peace? And so we did that one last year, kind of in a similar vein, a little different, but you guys can go back and listen to that on the Business Roundtable podcast. Just go back, look, Peace Index Assessment. And I'm happy to share that with you. So Stacey, final thoughts, takeaways in today's episode.
That we need to understand that holiday stress comes from multiple angles. It can be, your own personal expectations. It could be social expectations, and then the pressure that you have on your job, and that you have to take ownership of your own well-being. And so it starts with you being intentional with your own health. On that note, understand that as an employer or as a business owner, that you can also, you're also responsible for the culture that is created within your own company. And that a lot of times employers who allow the employees to create the culture face the issue of having that backfire when they have, unhealthy, mentally, physically, spiritually unhealthy employees, because it's going to affect the business crosswise. And I know that's a whole nother discussion. But just know that the employer, as a business owner, you do have some influence within the company itself, not just planning the whole year, but also planning during the holiday season. But ultimately, it comes down to you, the individual, need to decide that you're going to take charge of your health. And you know, if you're going to pull a couple people up and to be healthy, bring them with you. Go and jog. Don't go to the holiday party. Go
take a walk. Yeah. Get out there, you know.
Say no to that and then create your own. So
absolutely, I love that.
Walk around with the martini glass full of water and an olive in it. Right?
Hey, do that.
Oh goodness, it's been a blast having you both back. I know I see future episodes in our coming up with both of you. This has been so fun. Thank you, Heather and Stacey, for being back on the podcast and just sharing your insights on how we could be healthier, and being more intentional about taking care of ourselves as we go into this holiday season, and live a life well.
Yes.
So amen. Thank you.
All right. Thank you both so much.
All right.
Thanks everybody
Thank
for
you,
listening.
David.
Thank you. Pleasure being here. Thank you.
Stacey, is always wonderful hearing you. And
likewise, Heather. Look forward to upcoming.
Thank you.